All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bingo, and I'll be your moderator for today. On behalf of the Canadian Institute for Safety, Wellness, and Performance, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Before we jump in, I'd like to announce that this meeting will be recorded and transcribed. This ensures that those who aren't able to attend today can still benefit from the valuable discussions that will be shared today. And additionally, in case you needed the closed captioning feature, I'd like to point out that you can click the three dots at the top of your screen, and you should be able to see an option to turn on live captions. Further, as an institute of Conestoga College, we would like to acknowledge that in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and Brantford, that we are located on the Haldimand Tract, land promised to the Haudenosaunee people of Six Nations. This includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. This is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Neutral peoples. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on. And it's a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on the land for thousands of years. So now allow me to introduce the Institute and our speakers, Emily Rideout and Susan McCarthy. CISWP is committed to making Canadian workplaces productive and sustainable by collaborating across disciplines. Our aim is to position Canada as a global leader in empowering businesses to thrive in a competitive economy. We focus on improving workplace safety, wellness, and performance through research, knowledge transfer, and workforce development. By working closely with stakeholders, we conduct innovative research, we create evidence-based tools and services, and we address knowledge gaps in the field. Our host for the day, I'm going to bring her onto the screen. Our host for the day is Emily Rideout. Hello, Emily. Welcome. Emily is an environmental science professional with over 10 years of expertise in environmental policy analysis and disaster management. As the Senior Manager of Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Adaptation at the Canadian Red Cross in Ottawa, she helped develop strategies aimed at preventing the adverse effects of natural disasters and climate change. Her time at the National Capital Commission was where she contributed to climate adaptation policies, namely the NCC's Sustainable Development, Climate Adaptation, and Forest Strategies. Before this, she served as environmental policy analyst in Nova Scotia, where she was a coastal policy specialist. Emily's approach to policy formulation is deeply rooted in scientific research, yet it is tailored to meet the needs of communities. This ensures that the countermeasures are both effective and equitable. Joining Emily is Susan McCarthy. I'll bring you on screen too. Susan, if you want to share your camera, you can go for it. If not, no worries. Hi there, Susan. Welcome. Susan has garnered national recognition as an occupational health and safety advisor at the Canadian Red Cross. This has earned her a spot among the OHS Canada Top 25 Under 40 OHS professionals in 2022. That's awesome. Her 3-year tenure in this role is marked by her adeptness in crafting, executing, and refining safety programs that align with regulatory standards while promoting a psychologically sound and inclusive work environment. As a graduate of the College of the North Atlantic with a post-diploma in safety engineering technology, Susan combines engineering principles with the physical and behavioral sciences to conduct thorough job hazard analyses and risk mitigation. Her academic journey also includes a Bachelor of Arts in Political Sciences and Business Administration from Memorial University, which underpins her strategic and organizational acumen. In her current capacity, Susan is a strategist and a relationship builder, advocating for the collective responsibility of safety and excelling in communicating with and uniting diverse teams to adhere to safety practices. So while we've received some questions beforehand, we strongly encourage you all to continue asking questions during the webinar in the anonymous Q&A section. Rest assured, these questions will be addressed either during the session or afterward, depending on time constraints. We have made provisions for active participation through the Q&A and the polls features. These are available to everybody. Also, we may use the Q&A as a chat. So if the presenters ask you a question and you want to respond, you can go and do so in the Q&A section. Also, should people wish to continue the conversation after this webinar, I will be sharing a link to Emily's LinkedIn account in the post-webinar email. So feel free to reach out and connect there. So now please join me in welcoming to the stage Emily Rideout. Emily, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you all for being here. Hope everyone's having a great day so far. I wanted to start by acknowledging that I'm located in Ottawa on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe, beautiful territory where I'm very privileged to work, live, and play, and where it is also very warm today. So I hope you're cooler wherever you are located. Before I jump into my presentation, I want to learn a little bit about the folks on this webinar. So I'd like to throw up a quick, ask Ben to throw up a quick poll about what industry or what sector folks work in. And this will form a bit of a word cloud that will tell me sort of where you folks are coming from.
Just trying to get that set up right now. We have that up earlier, folks. I may just ask people to fill it in into the Q&A section. Give me one moment, though. For some reason, I had it set up and ready to go, and it's not letting me, I guess, have the polls. Oh, it's setting up the polls tab. But basically, the question will be coming up asking, what industry are you all joining us from? So I might just do this in the Q&A section. Industry are today. Slight hiccup. Hopefully everyone will be able to put in their responses.
All right, and Ben, I'll just make a couple of other remarks, and then maybe you can fill me in on what folks are saying.
Yes.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I look forward to sort of seeing where folks are coming from. Regardless, I believe you're here because you have an interest or a role in emergency management planning in rural locations or in small towns. I believe you may also be worried about how extreme weather events are increasing in severity and frequency, or how run-of-the-mill emergencies could impact the safety of your staff, potentially clients, your organization's bottom line, or its ability to deliver its mandate. And I believe you might be looking for ways to make emergency planning easier or better for your organization or your clients or members, depending on what kind of work you do. And the Canadian Red Cross is interested in these same things. So at the Red Cross, we're intimately familiar with emergencies, but there has been a trend lately in which emergencies are growing in weather-related disasters are becoming more severe and more frequent. In 2022, damage from severe weather was $3.1 billion, and I believe the stat for 2023 is roughly the same. Flooding has causes $1.5 billion in damage annually to property in Canada. And if you think of the heat dome that happened in BC a few years ago, this is the deadliest natural disaster in Canadian history. And in the past, 100% of the Canadian Red Cross's response was international. But now 80% of our response takes place here in Canada because of this changing landscape of weather-related disasters. So let's check in. Ben, did we hear from folks where they're from in terms of sectors?
Yeah. We had a few responses. We have some people in research. We have some people in the voluntary sector, some people in healthcare, and some people who are working in government.
Great. That's interesting. Okay, thank you for that. I'd actually like to throw up another poll question, or Ben, maybe you can pop it in the chat.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how prepared is your organization for an emergency? Scale of 1 to 5. And Ben, sorry, is the poll working? I'm looking at my presentation here. Or is it in the chat?
Worries.
Should I check back?
I'm trying to troubleshoot that, but I'm going to put it into the Q&A. Again, my bad, folks. For some reason, it just decided to stop working. So again, it's going to go into the chat. How prepared is your organization for an emergency? Scale I'm writing in as 1 being not prepared at all, to 5 extremely prepared. Extremely prepared.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
No worries.
Okay, so again, I'll loop back and see what kind of responses we get in just a second. So we know that natural disasters have always been around, but we are seeing this trend that they are getting worse and occurring more frequently. On top of that, the business sector or most organizations are not prepared. These statistics are from a US study, which found that 68% of small businesses lack a disaster recovery plan. Almost half of small businesses would take more than 3 months to recover from a disaster. And a quarter of small businesses never reopen after a disaster. So while these are American statistics, it's fair to assume that Canadian organizations are not in a better position. And so I'm curious, Ben, did you receive any responses about how prepared folks are?
Now, 3 comments. Some 3, so kind of neutral, like prepared, kind of unprepared, and then a 4, which is they're prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, no ones or
That's great.
twos, which is really good. Yeah.
That is good. Okay. So I'm going to ask, there's a few more poll questions coming here, so I'll take this chance to ask another one. Does your organization have an emergency response plan or an emergency action plan? Is that sort of specifically part of your readiness as an organization? So I'll come back, Ben, and ask you about those. So we're learning that many organizations are not prepared for emergencies, and there are several reasons for this lack of preparedness, especially among small to medium-sized businesses and community-based organizations. So it could be a lack of capacity in terms of staffing. Maybe there isn't a dedicated person leading emergency management. May lack funds to hire consultants to do emergency planning, or otherwise meet various provincial and federal standards. And so it can be hard for smaller organizations to engage in this work. Okay, so now I'm curious, it wasn't much time, but I'm curious if you received any responses, Ben, because I have another poll question.
No worries. We got 1 yes.
Yes, okay.
Well,
that's
2
good.
yeses. No, I don't know. Okay.
That's great. So, so my next question is, does your organization have a dedicated emergency preparedness lead? So do you have a plan, and do you have a dedicated person? That they don't have to be full-time, but someone who is dedicated to work on emergency preparedness.
Posted in the Q&A section.
Right. So I'll carry on and check back in a second. So preparedness is, of course, the best way to limit the emergency response required by your organization and also by the Red Cross sort of across Canadian society. So for every dollar invested in emergency preparedness, it can result in up to $15 in savings post-disaster. And organizations who have robust preparedness plans are able to demonstrate their commitment to safety to staff, to clients, and to the community. They can enhance their productivity by being able to sort of reopen quickly after an event and minimize losses. And the direct cost of emergencies are not the only costs faced. There's also indirect costs such as disruption to supply chain, impaired productivity, and other market effects that could reduce demand that can also occur after an emergency. So there's lots to think about. Ben, did you get any responses to that question about a dedicated lead?
No. 4 answers. Couple I don't knows or unsures, and a couple yeses.
Great. Okay. That's very helpful. So I think that's the last poll question. So I'll carry on, but that's very helpful for me to know all of that information. So thank you. So knowing that emergencies happen and are happening more frequently and with greater severity, and knowing that businesses and organizations, generally speaking, aren't prepared, the Canadian Red Cross wanted to offer a service that makes emergency preparedness planning easier for small and medium-sized businesses and community organizations. And so we're leveraging an American Red Cross program that does just that. And so I'd like to tell you about a new online platform available in Canada that can make emergency planning easier for your business or your organization. And it's called the Ready Rating Platform. So what is Ready Rating? It's a free, user-friendly online platform designed to help organizations and businesses improve their emergency preparedness levels. You create a membership. As I said, it's free, and members have access to assessments, emergency action plan templates, and guides to help evaluate and improve their ability to withstand a disaster, maintain operations, and of course, protect lives and property. The Ready Rating platform can be used by anyone, but it's geared towards small and medium-sized businesses, schools and educational institutions, and community organizations, including nonprofits, social enterprises, faith-based and cultural organizations, and so on. So the Ready Rating platform has been run by the American Red Cross for about 15 years now, and we're in the process of rolling it out in Canada on July 2nd, actually. So you are getting a sneak peek at this platform. It's currently available in English, and as of July 2nd, will be available in French. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the main features and benefits of this platform, and then I will give you a little tour of the website. So how does Ready Rating work? There's the platform has 4 core components and 5 sort of thematic areas. So the 4 components are, there's an assessment, a next steps report, an emergency action plan template, and a resource center of very helpful guides and resources. And the 5 thematic areas that appear sort of across those 4 components are participation of staff in emergency planning itself, facilities and equipment, training and exercises, and engaging the extended community in emergency preparedness. So I'd love to tell you about these 4 components in a little more detail. And again, I hope to be able to show you the website at the end so you can see what this actually looks like. So the first component is the assessments. There's actually 2 assessments. Organizations can choose which one they'd like to use. Ready Go is an abbreviated 20-question assessment designed for fast evaluation. It focuses on the core functions that affect preparedness. And many organizations can complete this assessment in about 15 to 30 minutes. If your organization is just starting its preparedness efforts, this is a good place to start. Ready Advance is more comprehensive. It has 50 questions, so the original 20 questions plus an additional 30, and it provides a more comprehensive planning approach. If your organization wants to go deeper or has previously taken some steps to be better prepared, this assessment will provide you a more in-depth measurement of the actions you've taken and what you need to do to continue to improve going forward. And it can be completed in about 45 to 60 minutes. So when you complete one of these assessments, you can complete them at any time. You can archive older assessments and come back and update assessments. So once you select the assessment you're going to complete and complete that assessment, a next steps report is generated. So each report contains, so it's based on the answers you provide in the assessment. For every question you answer no to, the next steps report will populate some information for you. So, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. So the next steps report gives you a measurement of your level of preparedness, essentially a score out of 100. It recommends some actions for your organization to take to increase preparedness in those areas. And it recommends tools in the Ready Rating Resource Center that could help improve in this area. So here's a sample of the sort of front page of a next steps report. It has a score out of 100 here. So in this sample, this fake organization scored 24%, and that is, there's further improvement recommended. It also shows the specific score in those 5 sort of thematic areas that I mentioned. And you'll see here that there are 4 stars. So the goal is to get all 4 of those stars in green. You get a star for joining Ready Rating, a star for completing an assessment, a star for accessing an emergency action plan, which I'll tell you about next. And that 4th star is really key. The idea is that organizations come back and redo this assessment and try and improve their score. And so if you come back and show improvement, you get that 4th star. And there's some benefits to doing that, which I'll tell you about in a second. So here's another shot of a section of a next steps report. So this is So question 5 in the assessment asks, we have an emergency response planning committee. If the organization answers no, here is a step that the organization can take to be able to come back and answer yes the next time. And there's also a couple of resources in the resource center that the organization could check out to help them improve when it comes to creating an emergency response plan committee, for example. So the next component of the Ready Rating platform is the emergency action plan template. So like the assessment, there's a short version and a long version. So the EAP Go template really has sort of base level of standardized topics when it comes to emergency preparedness, and it meets the minimum best practice requirements. Whereas the Emergency Advanced template has an additional up to 70 topics. You can toggle off and on a number of topics, so you can sort of choose from among those 70 which are relevant to your organization. And for example, there's topics on hazard-specific information like tornadoes. And this is, as I said, a more robust emergency action plan. So this template is meant to save organizations time and help them get started if creating an action plan is from scratch is an overwhelming prospect. This can make that task easier. So here's just an image of what the emergency action plan template page looks like. We are on the basic version, EAP Go, but you can see down here that you could change it to the advanced version instead. You can see here, it'll populate on the web screen, this emergency action plan template. And so you can see here some wording around reporting emergencies, some wording around evacuating signals to evacuate the facility, signals to move to shelter in place. And there's some sort of editable fields where you can put in information specific to your organization. You can download this document and do further editing as required. So again, this is meant to save time and help organizations get started on having something on paper. So the last component of the Ready Rating platform is the Resource Center. So the Resource Center contains more than 70 actionable resources that can help members improve their emergency preparedness, depending on what was in their assessment and their next steps report. When I say actionable, I mean that they are either a video that explains how to do a certain step, or they're checklists, templates, forms, sample documents that organizations can take and modify. There are presentation decks and brochures if you wanted to promote this amongst your employees or to other organizations, and newsletters, and there's just a ton in there. And I'll show you an example of something in the Ready Rating Resource Center and what makes it so cool. So I think this is a great part of the platform. So why use Ready Rating? Few reasons. It's free, which I think is really great. All of the preparedness recommendations in the sort of assessment and the next steps report and the emergency action plan are grounded in scientific research and expert opinion from within the Canadian and American Red Cross. The program helps members measure their organization's level of preparedness, which can be really helpful, particularly in making a case to senior management. And it provides organizations with really practical tools to improve emergency preparedness over time. There's one other little benefit. As I said, if you do your assessment and come back and reassess and are able to show improvement, members are able to access this member seal. So you can access this seal when you complete your first assessment, but you can access the updated seal year after year by coming back to complete your assessment. You can see that you can access the seal in different versions, so you could display that on your company's website or in the window of your facility if that was of interest. So as I said, Ready Rating has been in place in the US for a number of years, about 15 years, and surveys have found that their members are really engaged in this program. They found that 75% of users have updated their preparedness plans as a result of using Ready Rating. 70% have educated their employees on preparedness at work. And members have increased their preparedness scores by as much as 42%. and 93% rate the service as good to excellent. So Ready Rating is sort of well received by folks who are using it in the US, and it will continue to improve over time. So once we launch it, we'll be adding content to the resource library on a regular basis on a range of topics. Here are some that we are looking into right now. And so we hope to make it even more helpful as time goes on. So what are some next steps? If this platform is of interest to you and your organization, please go ahead and create a membership. As I said, it's free. There's an easy registration process. It takes about 1 minute. There is a member agreement that needs to be approved, but again, that can be done very quickly. So then the next step is to complete an assessment, either the Ready Go basic assessment or the Ready Advanced assessment. You can go ahead and download an emergency action plan template. Again, there's a basic version, an advanced version, or maybe you don't need this. Maybe this is something you've already got, and you can move on to the next steps report. Download that and start working on implementing some of the recommendations in there and improving your organization's emergency preparedness so that you can protect your organization, staff, clients, and community. So, I hope this program can be useful to your organization and those you work with. It's designed to be simple and user-friendly. And there's a lot there. And so I always want to sort of let folks know that as you're using this platform, you can sort of take as much or as little of it as is useful. It's not meant to be a precise process or a rigid standard to meet. It's really meant to help. Many of the resources are modifiable, so you can customize them to meet your needs and do what you can and try and continually improve that Ready Rating score. So I'd love to give you a quick tour of the platform. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and just pop over to that screen if you'll just give me a minute.
Just while you're doing that there, Emily, one of the questions that I'm seeing is what size of organization is this tool designed for?
It's a great question. It's open to anybody. So a very large corporation could, of course, use this platform. And we don't have a specific size of organization in terms of numbers of employees or budget or that sort of thing. But it's really meant to be as simple as possible to help organizations that have maybe just, a handful of employees, a couple of dozen employees. Doesn't matter how many employees, but if an organization is feeling like they don't sort of know how to proceed with emergency preparedness planning, we wanted to create something to help them. Or if they know what they need to do, but they just sort of can't figure out how to get started, we wanted to help fill that gap. So it's possible that an organization could be so small that this process might not be beneficial. If you just have, under 5 employees, say, perhaps this is more than what that size organization needs. But really, so we say small and medium-sized businesses or community organizations, folks who don't necessarily have dedicated staff for emergency planning. But having said that, I'm familiar with a few organizations that are fairly large and do have dedicated staff who could still benefit from having a sort of structured process to work through and a way to show improvement as they go on.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yeah.
Wonderful. So this is the Ready Rating platform. Excuse me. So readyrating.ca is the address. So we're on the Canadian side. There's a US side to Ready Rating as well. I won't be showing you that, but it's essentially the same. So I just wanted to show you quickly, this is the registration page. It's fairly simple. Put in the postal code of your business or organization, the name, and then your first and last name, and create a username and password. And you can identify your sector here. And so this information is for whoever's sort of going to be using the Ready Rating platform most often. But the next section is about the authorized representative. So we're just asking that you enter a name of someone on in your organization in senior management or a leadership position, just so to ensure that management is aware that ready rating is being used for the organization. And then there's a membership agreement, which just outlines what the site does and doesn't do. And once you sign off on that, you're good to go and you can start the assessment. So I just wanted to show you, as I said, a couple of components of the page. There's this really great how it works page that explains in text sort of what the steps are, as I've outlined in my presentation. There are some really great videos here. They're all under about 3 minutes, and they're quite nice for explaining how to use the assessment, how to understand the next steps report or the emergency action plan template. The About page has some frequently asked questions and answers, some background about the program, and some information about security measures, as well as some testimonials. I'm going to show you my dashboard. So I'm logged in. And this is my dashboard. So you can upload a company logo here. I've completed a number of assessments. So you can see I've got my 4 stars. I've joined the program. I've completed an assessment. I've done an emergency action plan, and I've come back to show improvement. And this is showing the score of my most recent assessment and how I compare to all of the other members on the Canadian side of the platform. So I can go into an assessment, see what this looks like. So again, here's my most recent assessment. You can see these questions in the 5 categories, the 5 thematic areas I mentioned. So you just toggle the answers. This little video camera icon will pull up a video that can talk about what this question is really asking. And once you answer all the questions, and submit it, you'll have access right here to your next steps report. And so what you see here is you can see the report sort of in the screen, the web viewer, but you can also download it right here. If we go back to the dashboard, this is where you can access your the emergency action plan template. So I think it defaults to the advanced one, and here's where you can sort of toggle off and on additional topics. But if you prefer the more basic version, you can select the EAP Go version here, and then you can save and download and edit. So the last thing I want to show you quickly is the Resource Center, and then we can take some questions. So here's the Resource Center, again, organized around those 5 thematic topics. So I'm just going to show you something that I think is really neat about this. So I'm going to go into Facility and Equipment. Here's a list of all the different resources under this topic. So I'm going to select the Shelter-in-Place Supplies checklist. So here you can see the checklist that you could work through to see if you have all of your shelter-in-place supplies. At the bottom is a downloadable version of the very same information. So this is here so that your organization could take this away and make it your own. And I just wanted to highlight this disclaimer at the bottom of the page. It's probably a bit hard to read, but it says, you are welcome to modify, copy, reproduce, republish, upload, post, transmit, or distribute any materials found on the Ready Rating Resource Center, provided you use the following copyright. So I think this is really cool because you can take this checklist and remove anything that's not relevant. You could add your company logo. You could share it internally. They're really meant to be very practical resources. And so that concludes my tour of the Ready Rating platform. I'd be very happy to take any questions you may have.
Thanks so much, Emily, for that presentation. We did have that one question earlier on. Susan, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add?
I guess in just because we'd mentioned earlier that my role was in health and safety, so as part of that, that's part of emergency preparedness. So do you think this would be a good resource for somebody who may not necessarily be an emergency preparedness lead, but also someone who works in health and safety, and maybe emergency preparedness is a component of their job?
I think so. I think that you know, the assessments and the next steps report and the resources really are sort of directing folks towards a lot of things related to evacuation, signals, processes, having safety wardens in place, and also testing drills and training staff on these different procedures. And I think those kinds of activities feature in a lot of sort of health and safety work. And so I think they can be very complementary. And I think really the goal is the same, to protect lives, to protect property, secondary goal, so that everyone can get out and the facility is sort of safe, and things can get back up and running as quickly as possible. But the primary goal really is protecting lives and keeping people safe. So I think there's nice complementarity there.
Awesome, thank you. And one other question I'm just curious about. So once some of the stages in the program have been achieved, obviously the organizations can go in and get their ready rating updated. Is there any kind of evaluation component or additional support resources that are available through this, or is it all an automatic process?
It's all automatic. The platform has designed to be very user-friendly, but also sort of self-supporting, in that hopefully you can find all of the answers that you're looking for on the platform, both in terms of like FAQ, or, but also in the resource center. And so by completing your assessment, you receive that score out of 100. And as you come back and change the answers to your to those questions in the assessment, hopefully answering yes where you formerly answered no, that score is updated. And so that really is the best like benchmark or way for an organization to evaluate where they're at. And that next steps report, again, can be regenerated based on the new results. And so it'll get shorter as improvements are made, and will continue to sort of direct folks towards what they can do to improve in this area. So it really is meant to serve that like evaluation function for organizations. And as long as they come back and do their assessments on a regular basis, they can keep accessing that member seal, which is another sort of little benefit that members can access.
Thanks so much for that, Emily. And thank you for those additional thoughts, Susan. Right now, I'm just looking at the Q&A section. I think that's it for today. Like I said before, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out. I'll be sending out a post webinar email. It will have Emily's LinkedIn, as well as a post webinar feedback survey. It takes a couple minutes. Please take some time to fill that in. At this point in time, if there are no other questions, I'll give people another minute or something like that in case they come up with something. Otherwise, thank you again so much, Emily, for that information. We'll see about getting everyone a copy of maybe the slide deck or recording of this webinar. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks,
Ben. I'd love to just add that if, you know, whether this platform could be useful for your organization or not, if you think that another organization could benefit from it, we'd be so pleased if you could spread the word. As I said, it's launching in Canada officially on July 2nd in both official languages. And so please do tell folks about it if you think it might be useful.
And there's always that ability to also share it and reuse it, as long as you provide that copyright at the bottom. And I think that's really awesome of the Canadian Red Cross. All right, if that's the case, thank you everyone so much for joining. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Everyone.
Thank you.